Hi everybody, Pete Sardis for The Lawyer You Know, back talking about Aiden Fucci. Today he was scheduled for sentencing. That got cut short. I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to give you some tidbits of information I learned about the change of plea, and we're going to talk about what we can expect to happen over the course of the next few months. But as always, if you enjoy the video, give me a thumbs up. If you're enjoying this series, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And as always, leave me your questions and comments down below. All right, let's take a step back. As you all remember, Aiden Fucci shows up at his jury selection the day he was supposed to start his trial on February 6th and pleads guilty open to the court. What we found out over the course of the last few weeks was that Aiden Fucci's lawyers had approached the state asking for a plea deal. Apparently, this had been going on for a while, and the state took the position that the family, meaning Tristan Bailey's family's request was that there will be no plea deals. He either pleads guilty to what he has done to Tristan Bailey, or he goes to trial and a jury of his peers will make a decision one way or another. I'm guessing then what happened is over the course of those few weeks prior to trial, there were a series of discussions that were met with the exact same response. It's either plead to it or go to trial. And of course, on February 6th, when Mr. Fucci shows up to court, he makes a decision that this is just not going to go well. I might as well take my chances and get a reduced sentence, or at least the chance at a reduced sentence in front of his judge. And he pled guilty, also asking for an opportunity to speak before the court, which the court granted. And Judge Smith let him say his piece, which was he apologized to Tristan Bailey's family and to his family for everything that he had put them through. So judge sets the sentencing hearing for today. And in the last video we talked about, I really don't think that this is going to happen that quickly. Truly, I don't think we're going to have a sentencing for a number of months. And today what the court did was he got all of the lawyers in the room and they set a felony status for March 8th at 3:30 in the afternoon. And at this point, the sentencing for Aiden Fucci has been pushed out until March 21st and March 22nd. So at this point, it looks like a 2-day hearing. I think it's going to be longer than 2 days. And I also don't think all the moving parts that are going to be necessary to do this sentencing are going to be done between now and March 21st, which is why I think the court set the March 8th date to kind of get an idea about what's happening so that he can get the lawyers back in front of him and they can kind of work on this scheduling together and to make sure that things are moving forward. So with that, a lot of stuff got filed, and I want to share the screen for a second so we can talk about what has been filed. If you recall from the last video, I actually pulled up the docket. This is exactly where we are. Again, I'm looking at the docket sheet for Aiden Fucci's case. So let me take my highlighter here and just kind of go through. You see where the plea was right here. And the next two things that got filed, both filed on February 15th, were the sentencing witness list for both the state and the defense. So let's take a look at those because I want to talk about what they are and what I anticipate, which is what leads me to believe that this sentencing is not going to be 2 days. The state's witness list is an all-encompassing roster of all the law enforcement officers that have been part of this case. You will see a couple of individuals here that are annotated by their initials. In Florida, anyone that's a minor is referred to by their initials. So ZLB is a minor. MH is a minor. And these are two individuals that the state has listed to speak at sentencing. Now, this is important because I want to show you that the list is 19 people deep. And of the 19 people deep, there is a little asterisk here. That asterisk says, the state will also call family and friends of the victim to give victim impact statements. What is that? It is very normal that the family and friends of a murder victim will have the right to come and speak to the court. Some of those people will speak directly to the judge, telling the court what kind of a person Tristan Bailey was, her hopes, her dreams, her aspirations. If there's anyone that she had a huge impact on, that person will normally speak to talk about the impact that Tristan Bailey had on their life. There's also probably going to be a couple of family members that are going to be asked to speak, and they will not speak to the court. They will speak to Aiden Fucci, and they will say something that I'm expecting the effect of, Let me tell you what you took away from us. Let me tell you the impact of your decision making, the emotions that the family is going to have, the loss, the void in their lives that they will experience over the course of what would have been Tristan Bailey's natural life. I'm expecting we're going to hear things like, we've lost the ability to watch her, grow up, go to college, have a career, date, fall in love, potentially get married and have her own family, have her own children, watching those children grow up. Basically, the huge sentiment that I expect we're going to see is going to come from Tristan's close family members. Again, those comments will be directed more towards Aiden Fucci than they will be to the court. Now, let me switch gears for a second and let's talk about the defense's sentencing witness list. Again, let me just talk generally about their witness list. You'll see a number of a lot more, I should say, initials. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minors that are going to at least be on the list to speak on behalf of Aiden Fucci. So now this is the other side of the spectrum. These are the witnesses that the defense is going to call on Aiden Fucci's behalf to talk about how he's a good person. This is aberrant behavior, meaning this is not something that he has done before. He's not a bad kid. This is just one thing in his life. He was young. He should be given some sort of leniency for some reason. A lot of, again, the young people may talk about something that Aiden Fucci has done that was good that impacted their life. I'll give you an example. I was suicidal and Aiden, consoled me and he kind of walked me off the ledge, or I was being bullied and Aiden was the person that came to my defense, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that those are the types of things that I expect I'm going to hear, but I'm expecting that something good is going to come from these minors, because that's the only reason to put them up, is to talk about an impact that Aiden Fucci had on their lives that was positive. We also see, obviously, some deputy sheriffs. I anticipate we're going to see a number of experts that are at some point going to testify. I don't see anything on the list of 22 people so far. I frankly also don't see a lot of family members that I can identify just by looking at the list. So what I anticipate is Aiden Fucci's defense team will put on some sort of psychological experts, someone to testify to the ability of a 14-year-old to formulate intent to commit a murder. I believe that there's going to be someone that is going to evaluate Aiden Fucci and give the court a deep impression of his psychology, an impression of who he is and the elements in his life that may have affected him to the point that caused him to commit this heinous crime. I'm also anticipating we're going to hear from some family members of Aiden Fucci asking for leniency, talking about the good side of Aiden Fucci, the things that you would expect a parent to be able to talk about their child. I anticipate that these witnesses are not yet on these lists because they're probably either A, haven't been retained yet, or B, have not yet formulated their opinions. There was a discussion during the hearing today about something called a pre-sentence report. That pre-sentence report is something that, in this case, is probably mandatory. That is going to be a report that the Department of Justice, the Department of Juvenile Justice, puts together, and it's an all-encompassing report that the judge will receive that talks about Aiden Fucci, talks about his background, his history, his family, again, mental health issues that may be relevant, any criminal history that he had outside of this case, anything that is relevant for the court to know about him for his sentencing. All the good, all the bad. The concept is that the Department of Juvenile Justice, keep saying Department of Justice, that's the federal criminal department that handles the criminal sanctions in the federal circuit. So I'm sorry about that. It's the Department of Juvenile Justice. The Department of Juvenile Justice is supposed to be kind of fair and balanced. Obviously, they're a governmental agency, so I anticipate it's going to be more bad than good. But again, it has to be done. It is something that is going to be put in front of the court for the court's consideration in sentencing Aiden Fucci. Again, remember, the most he can get is life in prison. It's going to be subject to some sort of reconsideration 25 years in. So this is going to be something that's going to be very important because it's going to follow Aiden Fucci along the path for as many years as he is incarcerated. There is also something that I anticipate we're going to see is like youthful offender stuff, meaning because he's under 21 years of age when the offense happened, is some consideration for the youthfulness of the offender. All that stuff, again, will be in the pre-sentence investigation report, which I do not believe is going to be ready between now and March 8th when the status conference is, or March 21st when the current sentencing is scheduled for. Let's talk a little bit more about what you see on this docket that I don't have access to. As you can see, there are some boxes that say requested. Those are in red. What that means is the items have been filed, but they're not yet ready for presentment, so they're not in the public view yet. A couple of the things that I think are interesting are there are 2 notices of taking depositions. One of them is a remote deposition, which leads me to believe that these are the depositions that are going to be taken in preparation for Aiden Fucci's sentencing. I'm guessing they're doctors, or if they're not doctors, or somebody that is far away outside of 100 miles of the Jacksonville metro area that is relevant for sentencing purposes. I don't know who that might be, but if they're outside of 100 miles, many times, that testimony will be taken remotely, meaning they're not going to make that person come to Jacksonville to give their testimony. They're going to do it either by a Zoom or they're going to do it by remote deposition, which means they will go to wherever that person is to take the statement. My guess is, being that we've been doing this now for a couple of years, Zoom is probably the best way to do a deposition anymore, unless there are a series of documents that need to be referred to and they're in a place where it just is too cumbersome to move paperwork back and forth. Most of the time we do these by Zoom. Presuming as lawyers you're organized and you actually have all the documents that you think are relevant, you can actually just structure a Zoom call to have all of the documents kind of in the margins, and you can identify specific documents, put them up on the screen, just like I'm doing here for you today, and go from one document to the other so you can follow along very systematically. As long as you're organized, this works actually very well. We do it in our practice a lot. Now, so 2 motions at this point of taking the depositions. I shouldn't say motions, 2 notices of taking depositions. I'm expecting more. The next thing I see here are 2 objections to subpoenas that have been issued by the Suwannee County School Board. It looks like somebody, and I don't know who because, again, I can't see the documents yet, requested the educational records for Crystal Smith, which is Aiden Fucci's mother, and Danny Ray Smith, whom I presume is his father. The school board has actually objected to that subpoena, indicating that these are records that are confidential and they really don't have any purpose in this particular case. So the school board is actually the one that's filed the objection and a request that they not have to comply with this subpoena. I anticipate that these are going to have to go to a hearing at some point, because if either the state or the defense really believes that there's a real reason to have these educational records for sentencing, then the court's going to have to make a decision. And if the court issues an order after giving the Suwannee County School Board an opportunity to be heard, it's either going to be yes, you can have them, no, you can't. If it's a no, you can't, that may be an issue for appeal. Again, that's something that we will see play itself out in court. But as we sit here today, I anticipate that this is going to need a hearing. And I'm guessing that that hearing time is going to happen sometime after March 8th, which is, again, the pretrial hearing, the status conference, or March 21st. I know I've said it in the past, but please understand that there are a lot of moving parts in a sentencing of this magnitude. Forget the fact the case has gotten a lot of public scrutiny, so that there are a lot of things that have to happen purely for image projection. Even little things like this, the objections to school records. Are these strange? No, this happens a lot. A lot of times non-parties object to turning over their information because they feel that it's either a violation of the Privacy Act of the person, or it's a violation of something in the procedural aspect of the subpoenaed party. So the school board is saying, hey, we just can't turn these over because they're not the defendant's school records. These are outside people's school records. So we need to have a hearing to determine whether or not they should be turned over. Again, these are the things that I anticipate is going to happen. There's going to be more than this. I also think that there's going to be a back and forth between expert witnesses. I am guessing that when the defense lists their experts, the defense the state will want to take their depositions, at which point the state's going to ask for their own experts to review whatever the defense experts have done so that the state has a rebuttal to whatever the defense puts up for psychiatric and psychological history. Again, these things just take time. You can't expect a psychiatrist, psychologist to just get a piece of paper, look at it, read it, and just show up to court and testify. It has to be preparation, not only for the experts themselves, so the experts know what's going on, but also for the lawyers, because remember, we as lawyers are not doctors. We are not these expert witnesses. We are only as good as these experts' testimony and their ability, meaning those experts' ability to guide us as lawyers down the road, down the path to ask the correct questions in the correct way. So when I meet with an expert, and frankly, when most lawyers meet with experts, they'll figure out what the expert's opinion is. Then part two of that discussion is going to be what questions do I need to ask to get you to where you need to be to set the foundation for the expert opinion. The third part of that is, where are my problem spots? Where are the holes in your expert opinion? And again, the experts will say, I can't testify to this beyond my area of expertise. You need a insert expert here. So you may have to go find a different expert. That expert may say, look, this is a hole here and I can't really fill it. All I'm going to be able to do is when they ask me the question, this is going to be my answer. So again, the lawyers and the experts will choreograph the way that the presentation happens before the court. Again, this takes time. It could take days to prepare an expert like this for sentencing. So we have at least 2 depositions that are being taken. We have at least 2 objections from the school board, and we still haven't gotten to where the rest of this stuff is really going to take off. I anticipate sometime between now and March 8th, because Judge Smith, everybody's named Smith here. Aiden Fucci's mom and dad or stepdad are Smith. The judge is Smith, so it's kind of confusing, so I apologize for that. Judge Smith is going to want to have this hearing on March 8th, and the questions he's going to ask are, where are we now? And what he's expecting to hear is, Judge, we filed our witness lists. We want to take the depositions of expert, whoever, or these people are not going to be available for the sentencing. We need to take their remote deposition so the court can see their testimony. We still have to deal with this Suwannee County School Board objection for these records. Yes, we've set that hearing. The quickest hearing time, Judge, we can get on your calendar is April, May, whatever the case may be. So that is what I anticipate is going to happen. I really am expecting that March 8th is going to be the time when the sentencing gets continued off until the next day, and another status conference is going to be set for that. Listen, 90 days is not odd to be able to prepare for a sentencing of this magnitude. So I'm anticipating 90 to 120 days realistically. Now, could I be wrong? Sure, I'll keep you posted as things happen. Other than that, there's really not much more to say at the moment. I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more filings probably right before March 8th. So I'll keep an eye on the docket. You also, if you look right here, is the URL. If you just go to the St. John's Clerk of Court, and you can do your own inquiry, you can follow along with the docket and see what's happening as items become available in the court file. So before we head out, tell me what you all think. How long do you think it's going to take for this sentencing to happen? How many experts do you think the defense is going to call? What kind of experts do you think they're going to be? Psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health people? What about the state? Do you think they're going to have rebuttal witnesses? How many family members do you think are going to speak? One of the questions that I have in my mind right now is 2 days for potentially 40 witnesses? I don't think so. There's no way they're going to be able to bring 40 people in to make their statements in 2 days. I think it's going to take substantially longer, or they're going to have to limit the number of witnesses that they call. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the state's going to put on every single person in their witness list? Do you think they're going to redact some of those names and kind of shorten the list? Do you think they're going to add people to their witness list? At which point, now this is not going to be a 2-day sentencing. It's going to be a 3, 4, 5-day event. Anyway, you all tell me what you think, and I will keep you posted as things happen. As always, again, if you enjoy the video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and I will keep you posted as things happen.